the Atman. The word used is Atma Buddhi. There is due to Maya, there is something called Dehatma Buddhi. That is, we feel that we are the body. The body is the Atman. So today's nature of the soul, something like we would like to do a little soul searching. There's something called soul searching, but that soul searching will not take the form of we've lost something. When you search a soul, it's like you've lost your soul and you're searching for it. Or it could also mean, yes, the word has been, you can say, descended down into folklore, and we have southern folk, southern soul food. That the other day we had southern soul food, and we have soul music and soul love and soul music and all the works. This is soul, soul, soul. And the soul has another soulmate. What's that? The word spirit. They are used interchangeably. And we find there's so much of confusion. One thing is clear, that it is abstract than the concrete reality that we are used to. Soul, yes, something it's there, but abstract. I don't know what it is exactly, but another thing, across cultures, nowhere it has been said that a soul has any gender. So it's abstract and without gender. So we get an idea of where exactly this thing is. Swami Vivekananda says, here I stand, I say, I. What comes in my mind? The idea of a body. And that's what is called the Deha Atma Buddhi. You can say my intellect is joined to myself as a body. This will have to be disengaged and then put to the real Atman. So, what is this soul? Yes, this is the beginning of religion. This question has been asked by countless people down countless ages. What happens when the body dies? The young boy Nachiketa, he goes to Yama, and then one of the final questions was, he asks about, there is this doubt. Some people say that the person exists. Some people say that person does not exist. You tell me, since you are the god of death. Ye yam prete vichikitsa manushye. Asti iti na ayam asti iti. It's there, some people say, and some people say it's not there. So you tell me. So this was actually the search for reality. The moment you start understanding, you question, you seek to know oneself, that's the beginning of spirituality. So this is the soul searching I was talking about. There's nothing lost. And the human, we can say, mind itself began formulating religious doctrines based on this search. Somehow, the search for the soul was always linked to the search for God and to understand the external world. These three things are always linked. It's called Ishvara, Jiva and Jagat. God or reality, the soul and the external. These three things cannot be separated. If you can, we are in big trouble. But of course, there are philosophies which we will see later on, that dispense with the idea of God. We don't want God. Simple as that. And there are some who dispense the idea of the soul also. We don't. And there are some who dispense with the idea of the external world. We don't want it. But generally, these three things are always linked, and the moment you try to conceptualize something, the ideas of time and space come and jump inside. Now you've got to see whether this soul has any time limit, or does it inhabit a particular place in space. And to solve this problem, people have been designing hells and heavens and this and that, because you've got to situate that soul somewhere in time. So the more limited the ideas of the soul is, the more limited the ideas of God will be, and the more limited the ideas of the universe will be. Oh, the universe started some few thousand years ago. Really? Oh. Then they'll have to expand it. Because as you keep on expanding your knowledge of the universe, your knowledge of the soul also will increase. Or if you keep on expanding the knowledge about God or reality, the knowledge of the soul also keeps on increasing. So this has been the basis of human search. Now, the initial ideas, amongst the Egyptians and Babylonians and Greeks and even Chinese and Hindus and all over the world, is the idea of a double. There's a double there within you. And most of us haven't graduated to higher ideas of the soul. We still think that it's kind of a double there inside. Now the Egyptians, they said, as long as this body is safe, the double also is safe. So that's the reason why they had such a huge burial processes and embalming and entombing and all the big pyramids. The bigger the person is, the pharaohs, the bigger is the pyramid. Oh, that body is kept there, the double keeps on moving about. In the Babylonian religion also, we have the idea of a double. But this double had lost all sense of love. And it visited the places it was used to, and always frightening people to give it food and drink. So the Babylonian double was a little, you can say, cruel. Even in the earliest parts of the Vedas, we find the idea of a double. Saying, there's a hymn that says, carry him, O fire, to the place of the ancestors, Pitris. Give him a bright body and let him be happy forever and ever. So here also we have this kind of, we have a special heaven called a Pitriloka, where the people go there and stay for some time. But fortunately we made it temporary. It's a kind of a way station. They come down. So even if you go to heaven, this is slightly higher, you've got to come down again. Somehow this world has been kind of has got a special, you can say, place in the spiritual universe. Okay. So we have this concept of this double, or it's more like a kind of shadow self. This shadow self, double, it remained inside, or it was like kind of a breath. In the old Hebrew books, we have God breathe into Adam. So it's called Nephesh. That is the breath of that God. So the breath entered into and then enlivened us. So there is a kind of a distinct entity within. We have seen that this either it's a double or a shadow. When this body dies, this falls down, then this entity comes out. How did it happen? How did they even arrive at this? See, what happens is, our ancestors, early ancestors rather, death rattled them. It was frightening. What? This person was alive right now and gone. Where does this person go? And they were very simple people, and not sophisticated. So they brought this whole thing out in a kind of a mythology. It's not just fables or fairy tales. These mythologies contain some real kernel of truths. So it said, we sit down in front of the fire when it's evening to protect themselves from cold as well as from the animals, nocturnal animals. Sit in front of the fire and they used to discuss, and they look at the stars out there or the planetary bodies. They're saying, there must be those guys, they also lighting these campfires, and there must be some kind of link. So this guy who has left us has gone there. And since we are mobile creatures, we always like to move, Ask a person to sit down quietly, that guy will go crazy. So it was also looked upon as a kind of a journey. And obviously it's supposed to be a kind of a better place, where all those who pass away, they go and stay there. So it was a kind of a journey. The search for this question, what happens when a person dies, was the beginning of religion. And when you see those old tombs or graves, they used to put those weapons and sometimes a chariot, and sometimes servants also put inside to help that person on the journey. So this was a kind of a journey. Now this journey took on various forms, and we'll slowly see what these things are. The second idea that we get about death transcendence is through the concept of dreams. We've spoken about death, what happens. Dreams. In dreams and visions, we find this entity inside has got a mind of its own. It will do things, it will go to places without even asking what you. The body is there still, and the person keeps on roaming. In some cultures, they say that the soul leaves the body, goes out, does those things and comes back. And what it experiences in that state of dream is what we call the dream experience. But of course, Shankaracharya dispensed with that. He said nothing. In the state of dream, all those impressions which you have accumulated during the day or through the lifetime, they emerge. So you see something, but in kind of a scrambled reality. But the idea that there is an entity that is separate from the gross body has become established. People were, quite simple, as I said, and they took things, yes, this entity is separate. So we have two, one the body and something inside. And various names are given. One of the names was, it began slowly evolving. The ideas of the soul began. The first ideas were animistic. That's why they used to call it anima. And what animism is, everything has a soul. People used to look at, you can say, thunder and lightning and rains and, the trees moving and the earth shaking. If these things can move, and we too can move, so all these phenomena also have a soul. So the whole world for them was living, full of souls with bodies. And that's the reason why this was the beginning of human, you can say, religion, animism. Okay. Now, when we had the animism, we had a certain class of people who could kind of get into a trance and do some healing or some, fortune telling or something like that. And the second stage was that of shamanism, shamans. We have these Native Americans, they were great shamans, and this was practiced all over the world. So we had a group of people who could get into a kind of a trance, get in touch with these souls of trees and plants and animals and birds. And so this was, the next stage was fetishism. Not the usual today's meaning of the word fetish. No, it's kind of fetish. No. The word fetishism was, some things have got some special supernatural properties. And if this can be worshipped, then those special properties can come within us. So the shamans were there already, and the worship of special deities commenced. This was the beginning of rituals. Today, as we have in almost all religions, we have this idea of Shraddha. After the person dies, we have these rituals, Shraddha rituals. In every religion. Who taught them? Nobody taught them, it's there. But then the theology says that these things cannot remain here. They go somewhere else. But no, that old beliefs are still there. When this shadow body or the double leaves it and moves about, it remains here for a while. Now you know where all these ghost stories have come from. So this world has got these disembodied spirits, and certain rituals can free them from this plane, and they go further on, wherever they are supposed to go. Okay? So that's interesting. In fact, most of our, you can say, thoughts, today's thoughts are nothing but a kind of a development from these old ideas that our ancestors thought about. Then we have something called polytheism. We know everything has a soul, but these are all special souls. And so we had, the god of thunder and the god of lightning and the god of rain and the god of the rivers and seas and plants and animals and the whole thing. That was polytheism. But then the worship of just one of these gods was called Henotheism, which of course is just a kind of a special. It was dictated by clan or tribe or race. Then later on came something called a monotheism. There was, my God is the God of all gods. All your gods are subordinate to it. Because in those days it was more like muscle power. It was might that ruled. So you conquer one tribe, saying, my God actually won this war for us. So my God is greater than your God. So you be subordinate to my God also. You be subordinate to me, but also to my God. So ideas of monotheism spread like this. mainly through conquest, not through kind of, spiritual ideas. And we know how things kept on getting worse. Or everybody had a kind of a god, their special god. And there was a god of all gods. But it was still confined to that race or tribe. And that's the reason why even today you will say, no, my god is so-and-so, and we have a special place. You cannot enter. Why not? Well, you are of a different tribe and race and religion. No, out. Most of the religions stopped here. But in India, they went further. And they had higher and higher conceptions of God. The Saguna, Brahman and Nirguna, kind of what is absolutism. The absolute Brahman. Where God is beyond all name and form. Why did we go to this evolution of, you can say, religious ideas? Because on this is based your ideas of the soul. You remove the ideas of God and the ideas of soul also collapse. So people who are atheists, yes, they'll deny God. They'll keep on denying God. They ought to start denying themselves, their souls. They make a glaring mistake. I don't know why they don't see the logic. The search for the soul started from the external world. And slowly, higher and higher conceptions have grown. This was in the West. But in India, the search for reality began inside. They went inside and slowly, higher and higher conceptions of the soul were brought about. That's the reason why you will see Indian sages and saints out there keeping their eyes closed and looking inside. You'll see some other sages and saints from the West, Europe, and all, they're looking out skywards. So it is just that. Then secondly, we think, oh, in India we say, in Vedanta we will say, oh, he has given up the body. He or she has given up the body. Given up. Deha rekeche, this is given. And the other opposite or the extreme is, oh, he has given up the ghost or given up the spirit. This itself tells you what is the particular mindset. One pins the reality on the body and says it gives up the ghost. And the other is the person is a spirit or a soul and gives up the body. The very ideas of soul also bring in the ideas of entombment, embalming. Wherever you find these ancestor worship, wherever you find graves and tombs, you know that they thought the body was primary and the soul was secondary. So amongst the ancient Aryans, what they did was, first thing that when they confirmed this guy is dead, take the guy and burn him up. Solve all your problems. Oh, of course, we should not just confine, because the ancient Greeks also did that. In fact, when Alexander came to India, and the Persians also, they used to cremate that. So it was the practice amongst that branch of the Aryan families, so to cremate. Even the Persians, the old Persians, who they leave the body out, the dead body out, for the vultures, the birds to eat, because they should not pollute either the air or the land or the water or anything like that. So but that very word that you probably have not seen those places, it's sometimes gruesome. I've seen those places where the vultures, huge fat ones, they have even forgotten how to fly because they get their meal straight on the platter. So that the word of that, the burial place, not burial place, that the place is called Dhakma. It is it comes from the word daha, means to burn. The ancient Aryans used to burn, so they have forgotten the whole thing. That the word itself shows that they also used to cremate. So, in the Old Testament, especially in Isaiah, we find that the soul has feelings and desires primarily, and intelligence next. And this soul, as I say, it goes down to familiar places. When it comes out of the body, it goes to familiar places, moves about, and then goes down in the gloomy areas of called the underworld. It's called the Sheol. The Sheol is actually when the Hebrew texts were being translated into Greek around 200 BCE. During that time, that Hades, it's a kind of even the Egyptians also, of course, and the Greeks also had this concept of the Hades, the underworld. So you go down there in the underworld. So that was the first concept of the soul amongst the. Then in the Greek traditions, especially in Plato and Aristotle, you find the concept of a soul now getting more clearer in Plato's writings. You find that this soul is an ideal, you can say, being. It is still a double, it's still a shadow, and we have this ideal, this perfection in the soul. And what they advised was, you cleanse yourself, cleanse the mind, and then you will find that perfection within you, and when you pass away, you go to this ideal world of forms. Yeah, that was nice. So it's getting better and better. But Plato's ideas of soul itself were from a previous, you can say, pre-Homeric, you can say, doctrines, where they say that this soul that comes out, it goes down to some places like a grove or a tree or a cave or a mountain, and it stays there for a while. That's the reason why people used to go to those groves or trees or caves or mountains or say, and do some worship. That was the beginning of temples. Saying they felt there's some presence there and we need to go and do that. Maybe a tree also. In India we have trees and rocks and this and that. So Plato was sure, it was clear that the soul is imprisoned in the body. And like in the pre-Homeric, this theories were that the soul left the body on death either through the mouth or through some wound. They were always fighting with each other, for dominance, and so they were getting killed and either injured or wounded or something like that. And the soul used to leave the body through that wound or the cut or the gash or through the mouth. In the even earlier to that, there were these Orphic, you can say, cults, where the soul, there were special rites. They used to go, Orphic and Delphic rites and all these things, where these souls could be unified with particular gods. So they had these special secret kind of society, secret rituals and secret chants or what, all these things. So the souls could be unified with those particular gods. And even the idea of gods was like polytheism. Everywhere there was gods. Aristotle says these two things, it's kind of a soul is kind of like a vital force. The vital force is the body and the soul are not two separate things, they intermingle. He was a little more rational. But when pressed, or if you really study Aristotle properly, then he's saying, only in the higher creative pursuits does the soul can disengage with the body. So here we have. Then the Stoics, these are the great philosophers, they brought in the concept of the logos. Now here things are getting much, much more clearer. The logos. What's the logos? That's the universal, you can say, intelligence, as you say. And souls are emanations of that logos. So we all embody the logos. In the Bible it's translated, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was a God, and God was a Word. Actually it's logos, it means logos. Beginning was a logos. So these ideas were, kind of in a melting pot. Alexandria was a melting pot. Stoic philosophers and, you can say Neoplatonists. And there was one great philosopher, Philo, who was a contemporary of Jesus, theologian, and a very great person. In fact, his teachings, what they say is actually been culled and put in the Bible, all these things. But it doesn't matter. People knew about Philo, but never knew about Jesus Christ in Palestine. So he had a kind of a combination. He combined Stoic philosophy with Neoplatonism. Neoplatonism, actually, those ideas were already there. It started with this great mystic called Plotinus. And all these ideas, they were the Gnostics sects, and like the Baptists and Manichaeans and all these things. They were later on, more or less subdued by the rising Christian movement. So it was a kind of a melting pot of ideas, and there the concepts of the soul were becoming much more clearer amongst the Neoplatonists. That there is a soul, or over soul rather, and each soul within us is a part of that soul. So here things are getting now. So let's come down to, of course, we have during in the Bible the concept of a pneuma and a psyche were kind of interchangeably, like we have soul and spirit, no? But in St. Paul's, we have a kind of a reverse of the Greek philosophy. He made the pneuma as a guiding principle, or all-pervading principle, and the psyche as a kind of a limited to the body. While in the Greek philosophy, it was opposite. So after all these things, that was St. Paul, of course, and towards the end of his, you can say, life, he was doing all these. In India, like I said, they started searching for things within. What is that thing? Does anything survive at all? Now in India we have various shades of philosophies. There were the materialists who said, no, nothing remains. These Brahmins, they were just to delude you, to take all your money. Nothing remains. So you are a body and you die, finish. So before you die, you can take a loan and can enjoy yourself. If you have to eat ghee, don't bother, because bhasmi bhutasya dehasya, when the body has been burnt to ashes, kim punara, who's going to come back and all. So it's like that. So the Charvakas, they had no soul. So did the Jaina philosophy. They had a soul called a Pudgala, but the karma, and there was no God. The Sankyas, they had no God, but they had a soul, Purusha. And the Buddhists, the higher Buddhists, they had no souls at all. Dispatch that. Solve all your problem. But then what they did was, they were really sincere. If you say there's no soul, they said there's no world also out. And there's no God also. There we are. Perfect. But the other systems of philosophy, the Sankhya's, they had a soul called a Purusha and nature. They never had any. Later, the Sankhya philosophy, they did bring in the concept of God, Ishvara. That was taken up by the yoga philosophy. So they always linked. So in the yoga philosophy, it's clear. So Ishvara, the concept of Ishvara is there, God. Then we had the Nyaya and Vaisheshika. These two philosophers and philosophies, they were battling it out. Sometimes they were saying, no, it is the soul, it's anu, it's atomic. Some saying it's vibhu, it's all pervading. So between the atomic and the all pervading, we had various shades of, we can say, souls. But one thing it was there, that they said it is eternal. That it is one with God. There they never disputed. But when they looked around, they said, my God, how come this soul is like this and this soul is like this and this soul is like this? There has to be some... First thing they said, souls are not created. So there we are. But what about the differentiation? Some souls are born in slums and some are born in penthouses. And some are born rich and some are born poor, some are born, you can say healthy, some are born illiterate. They're saying, no, nothing doing. Actually, it's just the law called law of karma. You are doing something and you get a reaction from that. And this was the first concept of the bondage of the soul. The soul is bound by your actions. And one to become free has to do the opposite type of actions that you were doing for so long. This doctrine of karma stretched more, became the doctrine of the punarjanma, the transmigration of souls. It's not, the soul cannot get educated in one stupid lifetime. It has to have, because it has to go from the lowest to the highest. It has to experience the universe on multiple levels. So what happens as the doctrine goes, like I am here and there's these pages here, these pages turn, like the book turns. Nature starts educating the soul. One after another the pages turn and I am still there, and when the book is over, the book is discarded. The soul has understood, and then its powers become manifest. So this was the doctrine. Now whether, sometimes they thought of it as a kind of a lamp. Suppose the soul has to inhabit a body of an elephant. The elephant body is big, and the human body is small. So it's like a lamp. When you light a lamp, the light spreads all over. And if the room is small, it doesn't matter. The light remains, but kind of compressed. So, of course, Shankaracharya dismisses that. He's saying, forget all this whole thing. But now the concept of this reincarnation had come inside. Now, what reincarnates? The soul. Does God reincarnate? No. So, what is the cause of reincarnation? What is the cause of education of the soul? Saying the soul has 3 bodies. Yeah, now it's making clear. The gross body, and the subtle body, and the causal body. It's like the waking, dream, and deep sleep stage, corresponding to that. So now they could understand. Okay, now there is something behind these 3 bodies, or the 5 sheets, panchakosha. the sheath of food, the sheath of life, the vital forces, the sheath of mind, manomaya, then of the intellect, and of the bliss. So these 5 coverings cover the soul. And the soul now is trying to free itself. Gets educated, and it can free itself. All philosophies agree. It can free itself only through knowledge. This is what it is. So knowledge can come through the grace of God or through the grace of Guru. Nothing is free. The soul will have to struggle, acquire knowledge, and get it. So, are there special souls? There are special souls, but all souls will become free. This was one liberal doctrine. That is, every one of us, every soul, whether it's the lowest forms of life, we shouldn't call lowest, there's no such thing as lowest. There is that one soul, the manifestation of the one soul, and everyone will come down to liberation. Some will do it in the morning, some will do it in the evening, some whatever. In the Bhagavad-Gita, the doctrine of the soul, especially in the first, second, third chapters, in fact the whole of the book, it's actually nothing but a doctrine of the soul. And God is put inside just as a kind of an ancillary. Because what we see is that they're giving examples. Either like a lower bird and higher bird. The lower bird eating sweet and bitter fruits, and the higher bird just sitting down calm, immersed in its own glory. And the lower bird, whenever it eats a little bitter fruit, it looks up at the higher bird and hops up a little higher to get a closer view or better view of that higher bird, which does not eat anything. So it's on the same tree, that is the body, and there are these 2 souls. So we have 2 souls. We never had enough of the one soul. We have say chaya tapo brahma vido vadanti. Like light and darkness. The lower dark soul is the individual soul, and the effulgent one is the higher soul. So we had a concept of the lower soul, individual soul, and the universal soul. Both are there in this body. Yes. So there you say, and then there are a couple of things there within. The Bhagavad-Gita says, Veda vinashinam nityam ya enam ajam avyayam. Know the soul to be indestructible. Veda avinashinam nityam is permanent and is unborn, ajam, and indestructible. So it cannot be, you can say, avyayam it does not decay. So katam sa purusha parthakam, it does not kill anything, nor is it killed. That's a great doctrine of Vedanta. He tells us this. Nainam chindanti, the soul, the weapons cannot cut it. Wind cannot dry it, fire cannot burn it, water cannot wet it, it's there, eternal. So we have this idea of soul, the individual soul. Now where exactly is this? We were discussing where is the soul. If you can, yes. If the symbol is given as a kind of a, it depends, but in India it's kind of a lotus. And that lotus is here in the heart. For starters, it's everywhere. Apadatalamas. It like gives off heat. It is located in the body, here. Sri Ramakrishna says it's here, it looks down on the 3 lower centers of consciousness. So, you have to first get a perception. People say, have you seen God? Have you seen God? First you must ask the question, have you seen your soul? It's only after seeing one's soul or realizing one's soul can you realize God. You have to realize first your soul and then realize God. Swami Vivekananda gives the example of a soul is a circle with a circumference everywhere, but its center is in the body. Here. And death means just a change of that center from here to there. And what is God? God is a circle whose circumference is everywhere and whose center is in all bodies. So here it is. Both these concepts, God and soul, are intertwined. In fact, the highest form of Vedanta is the individual soul does not exist. Shankaracharya says, I'll tell you in half a sentence, half a verse, what hundreds of books on Vedanta are trying to tell you. Slok ardena pravakshami. I'll tell you in half a verse. Yaduktam grantako, what has been said in hundreds of thousands of books. Brahma Satyam, Brahman is real. Jagat Mithya, the world is a mirage or unreal. And this individual soul, Jiva Brahman, this individual soul is nothing but Brahman. So we are by nature infinite. And what are the qualities given for the soul? It's not a substance, Every substance has a quality. Like this is a substance that has a quality. This has a substance that has a quality. It is not a substance. If you say it's a substance, then you will bring in the idea of time and space and the soul will be caught. So you have to free yourself from the ideas of it is only in the body. It is all pervading. Are there many souls? Apparently. But the highest is there is only one soul. And what are we? Just reflections of that real soul. So where in the antakaran, in the inner instrument, that catches a reflection of that consciousness. So like you have a sun and you have the reflection of the sun in millions and millions of globules of water. Similarly, there is this individual, you can say, soul, which is more or less temporary. Once we become free through knowledge, we understand that we are that reality. So, did everybody subscribe to this universal soul? No, none. Everybody didn't do it. There are 10 schools in Vedanta, with a slight difference. But the main three are Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita and Advaita. The dualist, the qualified non-dualist and the non-dualist. The dualists say, oh, you are eternally separate from God. It's like, there is one fire and sparks fly out. So, like there's God and then there's the souls. And souls are eternally dependent on God. So they will live forever and ever separate. Like the Sri Ramakrishna was saying from the mystic song. They're saying, I don't want to be sugar, I want to taste sugar. So the soul wants to taste the sweetness of God forever and ever and ever and ever. Amen. I want to keep my individuality. God will say. There are some who went a little further and says, like we have a body which is comprised of 37 trillion cells. About 37 trillion cells Each cell is separate. So, this whole universe and the souls and God is one entity. Like we have a soul, yet we feel we are the body. So God is the soul, the universal soul, and God has the body. And the body comprises of nature and those tiny cells. So when one cell from here suddenly realizes, oh, I thought I was separate, but I am in the whole. That is liberation. The soul does not go anywhere. It remains always as a part, a composite of the whole. That's it. And then the Vaidhists come and say, yes, wherever you have something called name and form, you will have something called Maya. So, even God will have to have a time when the whole thing will have to be dissolved. So, you cannot have an eternal form. There will come a time when forms will have to disappear. So, the old philosophers, they dismissed the ideas of time and space, but Vedanta said, no, you cannot dismiss it. Wherever there is a form, there is a change, and it is limited. So your soul will not be limited. So we see that consciousness is infinite, eternal, real, and it cannot be bound within time and space and causation, within Maya. So suddenly it dreams that it is doing all these things. And at one point of time, the dream breaks. And it will realize, I was that. So, they have, in Swami Vivekananda goes to a pool of water. It was a kind of a swimming pool. It is now a swimming pool. And he went to bang his head against those iron railings, thinking they are the dream railings. He wanted to bump his head into that. So everything was dreamlike for him. He has awakened. The soul awakens and bonds burst. And then you will find that this is the reality. And we are all souls, we are all part of that reality. At no time will be able to criticize or demean or hurt anyone. This is the reality. And India tried to base its society on this reality, on freedom, on perfection, on the reality of the soul. And thousands of years it tried to do that. Because if you build a society which is based on markets, on power, on military might or whatever, for the last 10,000 years we have been at each other's throats, trying to kill each other. Every form of society that we try to base on with ideas of limitedness are bound to fail. The future of humanity will base its civilization of culture on the reality of this Atman, the soul. Then we truly will be enlightened. We will truly build a new type of society, a spiritual, you can say, culture, and the world is waiting for. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.